The sport of kings, better than diamond rings. Football,
Wildcats,
football,
Wildcats,
football,
Wildcats,
football,
I got it.
Wildcats,
football,
Wildcats,
football,
Wildcats.
Welcome to the Married with Picks podcast, season 3, episode 2, week 2. So someone was on fire last week, Steve, and it wasn't me.
Yeah, I had some good picks last week.
You did.
Out of the gate,
I was surprised.
hitting pretty well. I don't have an exact number.
We were on the opposite side of a lot of games, so it was inevitable that one of us was going to be wrong.
Well, I know we bet on 2 games.
We
straight
did,
up,
and I forgot
and I
to.
won both of them.
You did. I forgot to bring your money up. I was going to give you 50 and tell you to keep the change.
Oh, that would have been nice. I'll collect my 40 later then.
All right. So before we get started on week 2, remember, if you're watching, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and we're available anywhere you get your podcasts. All right. So that's fine. Week 2. Full slate of games here, except the game that already went off last night. So first game on my list is the New York Jets at the Cleveland Browns. This opened at -4.5 in favor of Cleveland, and it's up to -6.5 in favor of Cleveland. So we have Joe Flacco again starting for the Jets, and I would like to pick against Joe Flacco and the Jets if it wasn't Jacoby Brissett on the other side. So I know the Jets' run defense was bad last year. I think that works well for the Browns. So I lean in their direction, but I just really can't do it with Jacoby Brissett at the helm. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
I don't really like one way either side. I mean, they both are teams that I don't really like right now. I can't really get behind Joe Flacco leading the Jets, and I'm not really strong on Cleveland either. If I had to take a side, I'd probably go Cleveland, but I'll probably stay away.
All right. Next game up is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. So this is an interesting game because since Tom Brady became a Buc, they have lost all 4 regular season games to the Saints. They did win in the playoffs, not this past year, but the year before. So the way that they've done that is their defense by getting pressure on Brady. Last week, it didn't seem like they got a lot of pressure against the Falcons. So that kind of has me worried, but it's the same defense. Like essentially the defense didn't change much in the offseason. The defensive coordinator is now the head coach. Tampa Bay has some issues on their offensive line. They're missing their center, Ryan Jensen. I think we saw Brady yelling at one of his tackles during the game last week. It sounds like Godwin will not play. And they have a couple other guys that are questionable. Julio, Fournette, I assume he will play. So I guess for me, it really comes down to whether last week was an outlier with the Saints defense or what. But I have to assume that that's the case. So I'm going to lean Saints here. And this opened at -4.5 in favor of Tampa. It's actually down to -2.5. So I would prefer to get it around 3. Do you have any thoughts?
I feel the same way I did last year when these 2 teams matched up. Like I'm leaning, I want to take Tampa. I think they obviously have the more talented roster, but New Orleans seems to have Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay offensive game plan figured out. New Orleans is 7-1 against the spread and straight up in the last 8 versus Tampa Bay. So it's really tough to go against them.
Do you worry about the fact that they didn't get much pressure on Mariota last week?
I do because they really were losing that game for most of the way and came back and were able to, snag victory from the jaws of defeat per se. But, I'm not really strong on New Orleans, but they're playing at home. It is a tough place to win, and they do seem to have Tampa's number very recently. So I would take New Orleans.
Okay. All right. So we're in agreement.
Especially it's under 3. That's going down. Well, we're losing points there. Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah.
It's
So
on
you
the wrong
probably
side of it.
prefer to get it at least at 3. All right. So next game up is the Carolina Panthers at the New York Giants. So we actually have the New York Giants as a favorite here, which doesn't feel good. I'm not a big Baker Mayfield fan. I kind of feel like he probably put it all on the field last week and couldn't get it done. So that probably doesn't bode well for them going on the road in week 2. Brian Daboll got his first victory as a head coach of the New York Giants, where they pulled out the victory over my Titans with a kind of ballsy move at the end there, going for the 2 points rather than just kicking the extra point to tie it. So I feel like they're going to ride the momentum. So I would definitely lean Giants, but it doesn't feel right to take the Giants as a favorite. And it opened at -2.5 and it's down to 2. Your thoughts?
Well, Matt Rule had a tough one last week with the Carolina Panthers when they lost to Cleveland. And that was kind of the Baker Mayfield
revenge game.
Yeah, revenge game.
Which has started out rough, but he did kind of come to life a little in the second half.
And you got to think he's going into a new offense. He hasn't been there that long. So he should only get better the more time that he gets playing with Carolina. The Giants, I had the Giants last week. It was very good to see Daboll kind of get his persona locked in on the team's attitude, going for 2, being risky. You got nothing to lose coming out of the gate first game. So I like the way he was coaching, but I'm going to go against him. I'm going to go for Carolina and take the points. I cannot, at this point, take the Giants when they're favored, home or away. So a couple stats I'm looking at. Carolina's 4-1 straight up in their last 5 games. That matters here because they're getting points. So, as long as they win the game, they'll cover the spread. The Giants are 1-6 in their last 7 against the spread. So, supporting facts there for Carolina. But nonetheless, I like to see Matt Rule get his first win in week 2 here with the Carolina Panthers.
Okay. All right. Next game up is the New England Patriots at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Open at -1.5 in favor of the Patriots. It's up to 2. So we have the Patriots lost last week to the Dolphins, only able to muster 7 points in that one. The Steelers defense dominated Joe Burrow and the Bengals, but they didn't get much done on offense. And TJ Watt was responsible for a lot of that. And he, I guess, was injured in that game. He's now on injured reserve. So we will be without TJ Watt, who is a difference maker on the defense. I don't feel good about this game at all, but I would lean Patriots.
Yeah, New England's 4-1 in the last 5 against the spread versus Pittsburgh. I don't like to see New England go 0-2 to start the season. I don't think that happens here. Pittsburgh got the win last week in overtime. I think their records will even out after this game. New England, even though they are on the road and giving up points, if it's under 3, I think this is probably around a 3-point game, if not more, for the New England Patriots.
Okay. All right. Next game up is the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Colts obviously lost last week. We have a visitor at the door.
Oh my God.
The Colts lost last week in a tough game there with the who did they play?
Colts?
Yeah. Draw the total blank. Houston, that's right. So, and historically, the Colts have struggled in Jacksonville. We all know about the game last year where Carson Wentz kind of stuck a fork in himself as far as being the quarterback for the Colts.
It was the last game of the regular season.
Yeah, that they needed the victory to get in the playoffs.
But Carson's not there this year.
And
it is Matt Ryan.
Right. But historically, so since 2014, the Colts have not won a game in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, they have not. I mean, you wouldn't think so because Jacksonville hasn't been that good. But if you go back to, you're going back there to like 2018, those Jacksonville teams were pretty good. Remember Blake Bortles had him in the AFC Championship against New England.
Blake Bortles.
Yeah, remember that guy? Hey? Seems like
he was
from the past.
One of those quarterbacks that was good for fantasy, bad for raw football. I guess my position on this is I have to take the points.
Yeah, with Jacksonville?
Yes.
Yeah, I would take Jacksonville.
And actually it opened, I have to I keep forgetting to say the lines at the get-go. It opened at -5.5 in favor of the Colts. It's down to -3.5.
Dougie had the guys battling last week in Washington, and
I thought they were going to
came
win
back
that
and took
game.
the lead. They just kind of, you got to teach a young team how to win the game and, put their proverbial foot on the throats of their opponent. So, there's going to be some growing pains there in Jacksonville, but I think this is a win.
If you didn't want to point out that it is Doug Peterson versus Frank Reich, who was his offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so we're talking about the 2017 World Championship winning Eagles, Super Bowl winning Eagles. And Frank Wycheck was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles under Doug Peterson, who was the head coach. You have that same matchup here, head coach versus head coach, as Doug Peterson is the coach at Jacksonville. And we have Frank Reich at Indy. So I like Indy long-term for the season. But I think this game, you could see where they win and not cover, but I like Jacksonville.
Okay. All right. So now we're on the same side of a lot of these games. So I don't know if that's good or bad. All right. So the next game up is the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens.
It's usually good, but let's not jinx ourselves.
Is opened at -3.5 in favor of the Ravens, and it is at -3.5 in favor of the Ravens. So both teams got wins last week. Not sure either of them looked great in doing so. I definitely don't think the Ravens did. Interestingly, Lamar did not run much in that game. And I kind of thought that this whole contract situation might go that direction where he wouldn't want to risk injury. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Historically, the Ravens have dominated this matchup. However, last year, the Dolphins did win 22-10. I think that game was in Miami. And they did so, I think, by blitzing Lamar quite a bit. So it is the same defensive coordinator there in Miami, even though the head coach has changed. A lot of the staff is the same. So I'm going to take the points and go with the Dolphins. I definitely like having that hook on there.
I like the Dolphins as well. I'm just not big on Baltimore. I think the game plan's kind of out there to contain Lamar and make him throw the ball. And I think that's a lot of what was going on last week. But you make a great point about him not wanting to risk further injury with him not being able to come to a contract extension agreement with the Ravens before the season started. So we know it's pretty public that he said that he's not going to negotiate during the season. So right before the season started, he came out with that announcement, and it would be interesting if that's really something that's affecting him with his play on the field, electing not to run the ball and put himself at risk for injury. But I think the story here is Mike McDaniel. That was a very big statement game. They've beaten New England before, which they did in week 1, the Miami Dolphins, that is. And I think it's one of the teams this year you got to watch out for to make a run to the Super Bowl. It's really going to come down to Tua. In many of these cases, it does come down to the quarterback. It's not saying anything that nobody doesn't know. But a couple stats here for you, Jaclyn. Miami's 8-2 against the spread in their last 10. They're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 September games. Baltimore is 1-6 straight up in their last 7, and they are favored here. So, especially with the hook, I like it. I think Miami does no worse than lose by 3. I'll take Dolphins plus 3.5.
Okay. All right. So we're in agreement again. Next game, Washington Commanders at the Detroit Lions. And this is another situation where we have a team that you don't normally see as a favorite. So the Detroit Lions, it opened at -2.5 in favor of Washington, and it's now -1.5 in favor of Detroit. So I don't have a lot to back up anything on this game. I like Dan Campbell. I don't like Carson Wentz. Swift looked really good last week against the Eagles. He is questionable, so I would keep an eye on that. I would feel much better, obviously, if he's in the game. I think these teams are kind of equal, though. They don't have great quarterbacks. Their defenses are not great. But I just love the Lions for some reason, so I'm going to go there. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions as a 1.5 point favorite.
It's an interesting game. I'll tell you, if Carson Wentz pulls this one out, I'll wear the Washington Redskins football team shirt. Washington football team shirt. I always have to say the Redskins on accident. But I'm kind of half cheering. I find myself half cheering for Carson to see if he does good. I at least want him to be healthy enough to be on the field when the Washington football team plays the Philadelphia Eagles for the first time. So with all that being said, I don't like a pick here. I could see either team winning.
Okay. All right. Next game is the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. It opened at -8.5 in favor of San Fran. It's at -9. So we do, and these next few, we have a lot of big lines for week 2 of the season.
Uncomfortably big.
Yeah. So when Seattle beat Denver on Monday night, I thought I can't wait to bet against the Seahawks next week. When I looked at the schedule and I saw who they were playing, it didn't make me feel too good. So I kind of felt like they probably, like that was the best version of the Seahawks that you're going to see because it was their game against Russell Wilson.
But what makes you not feel good about it is San Francisco's performance, right? Last week against Chicago.
Right. So I kind of feel like that was the best you're going to get out of Seattle. And really, they should have lost that game. I mean, there was 2 fumbles at the goal line. Obviously, the end of game situation. That was a fix is what that was. But
it was a fix or divine intervention, coming down and slapping the hand of Russell Wilson for leaving the Seahawks. Or forcing his way out the door, let's say.
So, and then obviously last week, the 49ers took on the Bears in Chicago. The field was like ridiculously wet. And so I don't know how much credit we can give to that game. They did lose that game. And then we also have the video on the internet surfacing of Trey Lance making it rain at the strip club. I don't know if it was later that night or whatever.
Trey Lance entered the Big L into Chicago strip clubs?
Definitely not a good look. And I'm pretty sure that Kyle Shanahan is not the type of guy to appreciate that. So
I know Jimmy Garoppolo is not, and he's probably going to exploit that within the locker room.
Well, I don't know. He had some story with a stripper, so.
Well, it depends on the timing of the situation, right?
But yeah, I almost feel like we may.
Then he was pro stripper. Now he's probably anti stripper just because it suits his case.
I feel like we may very well see Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. I don't know. I would prefer to see Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. If Jimmy Garoppolo was in this game, I would take the 49ers. And another interesting thing, which I thought was interesting. I haven't made a pick, but another interesting thing is that since Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers head coach job in 2017, Seattle has won all but 2 matchups against the 49ers, which is kind of surprising because I give Kyle Shanahan a lot of credit for being a good and innovative coach. So him versus Pete Carroll, I would have thought that he got the best of the matchup, and he hasn't.
Pete Carroll, he's a very good coach.
I mean, he had Russell Wilson. I guess maybe that makes a difference, but so I'm really. I don't want to take Seattle, but I can't take San Francisco at -9. Like, why do they even deserve to be -9? They're 0-1.
The line's uncomfortably big.
Essentially rookie quarterback.
I don't want to take Seattle. I don't think anybody wants to take Seattle. But if you're going to give more than a touchdown after what we saw in week 1, even though there's a lot of fortunate things that happened for Seattle and unfortunate things that happened to San Francisco, the line just looks too big for Trey Lance being the starting quarterback to come in here and be a 9.5-point favorite. So you're basically saying Trey Lance and the 49ers are going to make it, a 2-score game. And I just don't see it. I'm not a big fan of this game. I probably won't bet it. But if I had to, I would take the points in Seattle.
Really? So yeah, I would probably just put it in a teaser and take San Fran. If you get it at like 2.5 through the 7, through the 3.
I'm not looking at this as one of my strong plays. So,
okay. All right, next game up.
Both teams stink in my mind. I mean, San Fran's supposed to be decent, but listen, just remember George Kittle got hurt. I mean, that's a big part of their offense. So George Kittle and the running backs. Now you got Jeff Wilson in there, which might not be that bad because he was the leading running back in 2020 for San Fran. So he has been established. Remember, they got rid of Trey Sermon to the Philadelphia Eagles. So,
but they got rid of who else? They got rid of somebody else. But anyway,
Great.
what? One of the other guys that they had last year
what's
is
his
gone
name?
too.
What's his name?
So, but generally, Kyle Shanahan just plugs in a running back and it seems to work. So, all right. Next game, Atlanta Falcons at the LA Rams. It opened at minus 13.5 in favor of the Rams. It's down to minus 10. So, like last year, we saw the Rams would kind of beat up on the bad teams and play a closer game with the better teams. I don't know. I have absolutely no clue what the Falcons are. I mean, I can't say they're a good team, but maybe they're not as bad as I thought they were going to be, because I really thought they were going to be a complete dumpster fire. And they at least competed with the Saints. And I guess they did lose in typical Atlanta fashion, like be in the game until the end and screw it up. So it's a big line. I don't know. Obviously, the Rams are the Super Bowl winner. So are they going to go 0-2 to start the season? I don't think so. But I just don't know what to make of the Falcons.
Well, you think that the Rams would get a wake-up call after they got the ball shoved up, their defensive line against Buffalo. They really looked bad in that game. So I think in this game, and again, I don't really like this game either. Mariota, we were on the side of Mariota in Atlanta last week against New Orleans. They were playing
I was
at home.
not. You were.
I was. And I think I would flip it if I had to, but I'm not huge on the Rams either because I worry about what I saw out of Stafford. And if you get defensive pressure from Atlanta, he might be in trouble.
But are they? I mean, is Atlanta's defense that good?
No, I don't think they're that good. I think Atlanta probably, Mariota gets a good defense of effort and a push up the middle from Donald. It's going to be in his face and, probably, first of all, he'll make mistakes, but they're going to look to roll him out and get the running game going. They're really going to have to utilize Patterson to even have a chance. So we'll see what happens there, but I think they're one-dimensional from that factor. I would take the Rams if I had to, but it's not a pick for me.
Okay. I would probably put that in a teaser and take the Rams.
I would feel better about teasing the Rams than San Fran.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next game is the Houston Texans at the Denver Broncos. So just like before, when Denver lost last week, I was looking forward to taking Denver this week. They open at minus 10.5 favorites. It's down to 10. It's still a big line, but you do have the Texans traveling into Denver in week 2 of the season, playing at altitude. I think that's definitely going to have an effect. There were some statistics about playing at the altitude early in the season because they're not as, whatever the word is, their endurance or whatever. So I don't trust the Denver head coach at all. But I'm inclined to take Denver at the minus 10. I don't want to go any higher than that.
I mean, I think this matchup shows you what is great about the NFL. Like, it's Denver and Houston. It should be like not a matchup that really piques your interest too much, but a matchup like Denver and Houston here for me. I mean, I think if you're an NFL fan, you're really interested in seeing what happens with this result because you have Russell Wilson, who didn't look good on Monday night, having his first home game with about a double-digit favorite. Most of the lines are 10 right now. I do see 9.5. Did open at 10.5. But Houston, I mean, I'm really interested to see what Davis Mills can do because I think he's shown that as he gets more comfortable with more playing time, because he got a lot of playing time last year, that he might be, pretty effective. They drew, they had a draw with Indianapolis last week. Really, the most interesting thing, especially if you play fantasy, is the Pierce guy playing running back for Houston. He got bottled up last week, but I look for him to have a big bounce back game here. It's going to be tough to run against Denver, but I think they're going to get him going, and Houston's going to keep this within 10 points. So a couple stats for you. Houston's 4-1 in their last 5 against the spread. Denver's 1-4 in their last 5 against the spread. So opposite records, 4-1 for Houston, 1-4 for Denver. Denver's also 1-9 straight up versus.
But does that mean anything? Because it's essentially a different team. You have a different head coach. You have a different quarterback.
Yeah, if you want to make the argument, if you like stats, that's what we're given. So if you like stats, then those are some stats that are good for Houston. But they just back up my position that I like Davis Mills to be able to keep it within 10 points, and I would take Houston.
Okay. All right.
Do you like Denver?
I do like Denver, but I'm not going to bet you
one?
because now it's like the jinx.
So, okay, we're just not going to bet anymore?
No, especially when it's a 10-point line.
Oh, God.
All right,
You're
next.
looking to bet every game if you won the first two, as opposed to losing the first two week one.
I'm convinced that the reason I lost is because I bet you. The reason the Cincinnati Bengals lost was because I bet you.
Okay, well, let's test that theory with
No.
Houston and Denver. And,
No.
and I'll, listen, I won't even make it 10. I'll make it 9.5.
You give me 7, I'll bet you.
Give me 7.5.
No, I want 7.
I need the hook. I mean, it's 10. The line's 10.
I
You're
know.
looking for 3 points.
You're looking for a bet.
All right, get out of here. Scram, punk.
Next game is the Arizona Cardinals at the Las Vegas Raiders. So these are both 0-1 teams at this point. So Arizona was I was interested to see what happened last week. It didn't look good for them. They were without a few players. Their center did not play. JJ Watt did not play. And Rondell Moore was out. He will be out again this week. I believe the center and JJ Watt were limited participants at practice, so their status would still be up in the air. I don't really have a lot on this. I don't know what to make of the Cardinals. I mean, you have a team that came out last year and was like undefeated, 10-0 or something. And they kind of look like crap week one this season. Raiders obviously have added some talent. It opened at -3.5 in favor of the Raiders. It's up to -5.5. So that's a reaction to how bad the Cardinals were. So, I mean, I would probably lean Raiders, but I don't have a strong take on this at all.
I think Arizona looked horrible last week. They seem to not be able to change their defensive scheme to go against, to not blitz, which is something that you don't do to Patrick Mahomes. You don't blitz him because he will find the weakness in your defense that you leave open based off sending an extra guy at the quarterback. And he took full advantage of them last week. I don't know if Arizona is going to do the same thing, but Devontae Adams should have a very successful campaign. Look for him to get the tight end involved as well. I like Las Vegas here. Arizona is 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 and 1-4 against the spread in the last 5 versus the Raiders. I like Vegas. I'll give up 6.5. I like it under 7. The line's flashing some places down to 6. So 6, 5.5.
I have it at 5.5.
All right, that's perfect.
All right. Next game is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Dallas Cowboys. Open at -1.5. It's up to -7. That would be because, number one, the Cowboys looked pretty bad last week regardless. Number two, they lost Dak in that game, so they will have Cooper Rush at quarterback. So I already bet this at 6.5 when it came out after we knew that Dak wasn't going to play. Yeah. So, and that would be my play of the week, and all the money is going to be on the Bengals, but at least it's a 4:00 game, so I'm not as worried about it. And people keep saying like the line shouldn't have moved that much, blah, 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 blah. I think it should have. I think it should have moved more. So, Bengals.
Yeah, I don't have a pick for this game. I just worry about Dallas keeping it to within 7. It feels like it feels weird, one of those games. It seems like an easy Bengals win. And if I had to bet it, I'd take the Bengals. But I'm not going to make it a play because this looks like could be a sucker bet.
Okay. All right. Next game, Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. Do you want to take this one?
Chicago's 8-2 in their last 10 in September games straight up. Green Bay's 1-5 against the spread in their last 6. I like Chicago. It's not just because of those stats. They are getting well, it opened at 8.5 and they're getting 10 now. So I see it 10.5 in a couple places. Who knows? This is Friday night. By game time, you might have a full 11 points. I would take Chicago because I just don't think that Green Bay, I don't see it. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, people are like, the Vikings this, and then Green Bay is good. The Vikings just had their number. I think the Vikings are pretty decent, right? And I think they're going to be good this year. But regardless, Green Bay's in trouble, okay? They don't have Devontae Adams anymore. I know they're who's their number one receiver now that was there last year?
Lazard.
Yeah, Lazard is back this week. So he didn't play much last week, right?
He was out last week. He's questionable for this week.
Yeah, so I'm hearing he's playing, but regardless, I don't think he's that good. I mean, he's okay.
Well, he's definitely no Devontae Adams.
Yeah, and I just think that they're in trouble without Devontae Adams. I think Aaron Rodgers is bound to, he's getting old and distracted. I think that he's definitely going to have issues winning games without Devontae Adams. I mean, look even at like how many games they barely won because Devontae Adams could get a late touchdown. They don't have that guy. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams definitely had like a bulk share of the targets.
And I'm hearing a lot of like Green Bay this week, like, oh, they're going to bounce back. Like it was just the Vikings. I'm like, it's not just the Vikings. It's the Green Bay Packers suck. All right, I'm going to tell you this right now. So I'm going to take the Bears. I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to love it. I don't think Justin Fields is that great, but are they going to keep it? I see like a 24-21 game either way.
Well, and the other thing, this was the team where Aaron Rodgers said, I own you last year when they played. So that's definitely like
beat the shit out
fodder
of him.
for the
they
Bears.
Come back and beat the shit out of them, and I don't blame them.
To compete here. And I think, I think Adams leaving, it's a big deal because that was his guy, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust those other guys.
Yeah. And he gets what he deserves because he's making $50 million a year. So there's no reason that he had to take that much. He took the money and then expected Adams would stay and take less money. And that just wasn't the case.
So, all right. I'm with you on that one. I think you got to take the points. All right. Next game. So we're on to the Monday night games. We have 2 Monday night games this week. I'm not exactly clear on why. Television broadcasting, apparently. So we have the Tennessee Titans at the Buffalo Bills. It opened at -7.5 in favor of the Bills. It's up to -10.
That's the 7:15 p.m. Eastern time game.
So we've seen Tennessee step up in these big games the last couple of years. They beat the Bills both times when they played in the regular season in the last 2 seasons. Unfortunately, they're not the same team, I don't think. And they also lost Harold Landry, who is one of their linebackers, last week. And I kind of feel like the Bills are on a little bit of a revenge tour, and the Titans would probably be on their list. So it's a big line. But I almost lean Bills. This
is the one game where the big line does not scare me. I'm all over the Bills. Tennessee sucks. The Bills are 4-1 against the spread in the last 6. Tennessee's 3-6 in their last 9 against the spread. But more importantly, Tennessee doesn't have that receiving threat that can really.
Robert Woods
put
only
some
had 1
damage
catch last week.
He only had 1 catch. He lost A.J. Brown. As we talked extensively last week about how important A.J. Brown was to Tennessee's offense.
How important a field stretcher is.
Yeah. Well, I like Buffalo. 10 points. I like them at 14. I like them a lot. I think it's a coming out party in Buffalo.
I definitely think the Bills win. I mean, it's a big line. Tennessee definitely puts up a fight in these kind of games. I just don't know if they have the fight.
I see a Tannehill struggle.
And they actually, I think the Bills acquired a couple of their offensive linemen from the Titans, Saffold and another guy who I don't think is a starter, but. So, yeah, I don't know. All right, we're together on that one, too. So, final game on the card is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a 2-point favorite. So, this one worries me from the Vegas perspective because we have Minnesota who came into the season with a lot of hype, and they kind of proved that last week. They had a big game. Jefferson had 2 touchdowns. This is the prime time.
What side of that game are you on?
Which game?
Green Bay, Minnesota. I believe Green Bay, right?
No, I was on the Vikings.
Okay.
I'm not on Aaron Rodgers.
All right. I was on the Vikings.
But this is one where I want to watch the money because if a lot of the money ends up on the Vikings, then I'm going to go Eagles. Right now, 79% of the handle is on the Eagles. 70% of the bets is on Minnesota. So I think Minnesota is the better team. I hope they get the win, but I'm going to follow the money on this one. So it might end up being the Eagles.
All right, I'm taking the Eagles all day. They're getting giving up less than 3 points at home on Monday night. Kirk Cousins is in trouble. My feeling is that Philly held back against Detroit. They didn't really want to put their blitz schemes or a lot of them on film from Minnesota. Watch out this week as they. I really hope the Vikings win, but they are going to unleash. Watch the Eagles this Monday night. We'll tell you. Listen, I'll tell you this is going to be a great gauge. Because if Minnesota can come into Philadelphia, it's going to and win the game. It's going to tell you a lot about Minnesota and how far they've come. That they'll be able to go on the road outside of the dome and beat a quality football team like the Philadelphia Eagles. This is only week 2. I remind you.
Oh, God.
But-
and if the Eagles win against the Vikings, then I'm really in for it.
Minnesota's 5-12
Because the
against the
hype
spread.
train is leaving the
The
station.
last 17 games against Philly. I just think that the defense is much improved and that they will get after it after looking kind of vanilla and out of shape really late in that game. And if they can get a little more of the rotations going, the wary thing is
I see like a couple Kirk Cousins interceptions.
see, I'm not worried about Kirk Cousins. I'm more worried about Dalvin Cook because the way that
Swift
the
ran all over you.
Swift took advantage of the Eagles late. And I mean, he was running the whole game, let's be honest. But I think that when you put Jordan Davis in there, he curtailed a lot of that running. So we got to make sure that they have to make sure that they keep Jordan Davis fresh so that he's effective in the fourth quarter. And Dalvin Cook's not running up and down the field. That's where the game could get away from Phillies if Dalvin Cook can get unleashed. He could have a very big game here. But I think the Phillies going to be able to, behind Fletcher Cox showing up and Jordan Davis, like I mentioned, in the new linebacker backing crew, are really going to throw Minnesota off with their blitz schemes. I think Gannon's been holding back, and now that he has the personnel, he's waiting for one more game at home to get a little more aggressive here. So I'll take Philly.
Okay.
-2.
All right.
2.5.
We're potentially on the same side of that as much as it pains me. All right. So that will do it for us for week 2. We got this one in 36 minutes.
Quick.
Good. All right. Remember to like on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and we're available anywhere you get your podcasts. Peace out.
Good luck.